The Human Founder Podcast by Yaniv Rivlin.
Today I have the pleasure of speaking with Yaniv Rivlin. Hey Yaniv, it's really great to have you here with me.
Hey Gali, it's so great to be here.
Let me introduce you. Yaniv, you are Bird's founding general manager in Israel and a senior director in the global company, where you also run the EMEA government partnership department. You're also the author of Life as a Startup, which you recently published and has already become a bestseller, and we're going to talk about it. I really like the Life as a Startup. Prior to that, you co-founded and served as the executive vice president of Contribute, and most recently being senior program officer of the Charles and Lynn Schusterman Family Foundation, where you built and led a team that runs the Reality Experience Journeys, a program which invites industry leaders in diverse spaces to participate in leadership training in Israel. Among other awards, you've been selected to the prestigious 40 Under 40 by The Marker and the 10 Israel's Trailblazers by Samsung and the Haaretz newspaper. You're married to Ophir and many, many other things that we're going to talk about during this lovely episode. So, hi again.
Hello, hello.
So we've met on the airport in Dubai. We just spoke about it like a few minutes ago. And back then we weren't still too acquainted with each other. And it's really great now to have this opportunity to dive deeper into something which actually, I think, very, very precious to both of us. And these are the mental aspects accompanying the entrepreneurial journey and what we are actually going through during this roller coaster. And I see also in your book this roller coaster that takes us from the highest of highs and lowest of lows and actually shares your story about how everything began and the inner strong belief that you have within you that guided you through your journey. I want to take you to this, to begin our conversation in this place that you described as you felt hopeless and everything was dark and you didn't know how to get out from that point. And what did you actually understand there?
Yeah, so I think if we go back to that moment, I think it was the moment after I graduated my master's from Harvard. I moved over to Atlanta, where I got a job at the Schusterman Foundation. And I really at that point, you go from like the high of everybody telling you can do whatever you want, everything's achievable at Harvard, and it's a great experience, to starting a new position, and no one really talks to you about the extreme changes. I also write it in the book. I think that universities in general would make a lot of money in their endowment if they would actually look and have like a year post-graduation fund, because those are the times where people really need it, going through those changes. And I think at that
what happened
point,
there? What did you feel? What happened to you?
Yeah, so that point in Atlanta, starting a new job, not really knowing if this was the right move that I made, like a lot of things in my head, feeling that, I can't really do the job. I'm not in the place that I need to be. I had my girlfriend then. She was still in Boston. She was doing a dual degree in Harvard Business School and Kennedy School, and she was there. I was here. That I rejected an offer from Boston, a great offer. Suddenly, that offer becomes a glorifying thing. Moving to the South, east of the United States, or myself, pretty much. But it's not that. It's more about the mental, right? It's the mental state that we're in. Talked a little bit about it before. I think that wasn't the first time that I was, in that point. That was, though, the first time that I, identified it. And I think...
So just say the word. What did you identify there?
So I basically identified that So I'll continue a little bit and then I'll go back to what I identified, because I think it's important. Okay. So then I was basically in that point, I was talking to my amazing family. I was talking to my mother and to my sister and sharing with them how I feel. And keep in mind, it's like 5,000 miles away. I'm in Atlanta, they're in the Golan Heights. And automatically my mother sends my sister on a plane and
to come to you.
To come to me.
Wow.
And she comes over, and my sister's amazing, Lital, really, really remarkable. She comes, and keep in mind, I'll give you a little bit of the setting. Just moved to Atlanta, in the place, everything's in boxes, right? Which is also, like, I think a very important thing that you also realize after is how important your surrounding exactly is. For the rest of the things, sometimes you take that for granted.
Mm-hmm.
So she came. The first thing she did was basically she unboxed everything, made us wake up early in the morning and go work out every morning. And I think then you actually understand where you were and how and what makes the difference, what makes that change. And by like doing that workout, which before I couldn't even imagine me getting out of bed, doing that whatever workout it is, by her pulling me out, literally, in her amazing talent. And when you go and work out and feel much better after, you understand that that's not a constant situation. And that's, and there are things that work in each and every one of us in a different way, and brings us out. To me, I understood at that moment that working out is that holy grail in a way. And since then, every time I start to feel a little bit, I automatically go. I put down everything. Doesn't matter where I am, what happens, and I go do some kind of physical workout, and it completely transforms my mindset. And from there, it just obviously change. And also understanding that during times of change, we need to be more reflective, and we need to understand that it's a time of change, and that time of change will pass. And I think that's a thing that you learn throughout your journey as you move from reality to reality. But it's a hard thing to grasp in the beginning.
So I think that what's the missing piece of this puzzle to the audience is that we spoke about it before. For you, it's so clear, but then again, you didn't say it out loud. Then you understood that you are actually in depression, that you were depressed for some time, and it's something that was difficult for you now to mention. You just spoke about it like around it, and what's beautiful to see is, first of all, that you understood it later on, and that your mother was so sensitive to listen to you from a phone call, and to see you and to understand that the surrounding, the family needs to do something ASAP, and she sent your sister Lital on the plane to come and help you. This is one thing. And how Lital helped you to organize your situation, organize your life, unpack everything in order to feel more grounded. And this was like the first thing that she did. And as you described, to wake up earlier, to go to do a workout. So all these routines within our life that seems to be very, very ordinary and like simple. But how much do we need this grounding in order to help ourselves get out from a situation? Now, only then you could reflect about yourself that you had a depression.
Yeah, I think only like you understand it once you're in, but I also think that point really brings you out, and also understanding that once you're out, then it's then like there's a slippery slope, but on the flip side, there's also the up, right? And once you do those steps, that's how you get out, and it happens pretty fast. So I think
for you.
I think fast is a relative term, but I think each person to that point needs to know what does it for them and what they need to do, and those points. And I think that's a very important reflective mindset.
Also, something interesting is that you're describing that you started to feel that way after a few highs, after you graduated from Harvard and you had a new job, new exciting job, and you had a girlfriend and you lived in the US, and it seems like everything is just on track, right? And everything going in the right direction, and you're succeeding, and family and friends from back home can be very, very proud of you, and you can be very proud of yourself. And exactly in this point where everything seems to be so, pink and happy and good, this is where you, all of a sudden, you feel emptiness. And you feel that you don't know how to grab everything that happens, and you don't know maybe to appreciate, or maybe you can't even. And everything is allegedly good from the external environment, but your inner experience is totally different. And this gap between what happens from the outside and how everything are looking at you and expecting you to feel, and how you feel from the inside, is a very, very difficult gap to grasp and to understand. But you, as the person who's been going through it, really feel that emptiness and these mixed emotions that you don't necessarily know how to navigate.
It's true. And also there's a lot of studies that show that, that most of those times come after a high. And they come after a high for a reason that you mentioned. And I think, we need to understand that there was I can't remember the exact stats, but there was a study that was done that people post studies at Ivy League universities actually feel a real down, and they can't, and it's an oxymoron, right? Because they can't really share that they feel that way, because they're not expected to feel that way. But I encourage everybody, like, once you get into that, position, it's important to share, because it's very, very hard, and I would say almost impossible to get out of it by yourself.
So was that the first time that you ever felt that way? Or this is something that once you understood that this is what's going through within you, you actually understood that it's not the first time that you're having a depression, and you could reflect back to previous years that you actually have been through these kind of episodes in the past, and only now you know to name it. So what was it for you?
100%. So for sure, reflecting back then and understanding that there were definitely times, and I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't know how to cope with it. I didn't know that if I go to work out, I couldn't make those connections. And that's why when you asked me, I mentioned that was a pivotal moment, because that was the moment where I understood. And I can also say a lot of times afterwards also, but afterwards I had a better grasp of how to change that, what I need to do in order to make that difference. And I think, in a journey as an entrepreneur, and there's always going to be those times. And I think what is so important is to know yourself and to know how to get out of that situation. And I say it a lot in the context of, we can talk about it later, but in different contexts in our life cycle, that only we know for ourselves what works. And it's similar to, like, our parents tell us that, we need to go study law, accounting, and all that, and we need to go work at this job or that job, or our surrounding tells us this. But in the end, we need to do what is good for us. We need to do what makes us happy, because if we do what makes us happy, we'll do it well. And if we don't do what makes us happy, then we won't do it well. And I think it's also very important. I have a saying when I try to figure out where I want to be, what do I want to work at, I always say that what you need to think about is what you want to talk about in the Friday night dinner table. To me, that is the key decision making around where you need to be, because that basically takes out what society thinks, because that can be anything that makes you feel good. You can be in, we're now in Google, an amazing company.
I'm not sure I agree with you, because also when you think about a Friday dinner, it means that you have an audience. So the audience is listening, and whether or not are they going to like what I'm saying or not. So sometimes, if to continue this line of thinking, which I totally agree with what you believe of understanding who we are in this journey and what do we want to do. So one of the things that I think is very, very helpful for people in the beginning of their way, whether or not they want to be founders, entrepreneurs, or just to develop their career path in different directions. First of all, just trying to imagine, 24 week of working in their future, allegedly want to be a work or position, and try to see their day-to-day lives. What actually happens there? What are the small actions that they are doing, who are the people they are going with, what is their surroundings, where they are traveling, what is the kind of verticals and materials that they're actually thinking about, with whom they are eating lunch, and which places in the world they are going to see conferences or participate, and really try, use our imagination in order to imagine it. I like less the Friday dinner because at least in my interpretation, Friday dinner is also something that, the whole family is together, and this is like your a stage to bring out whatever that you are doing. But
so I'll just say that what you just said is a part of the Friday night dinner table. So as in, when you do that exercise to yourself, you need to think at exactly those moments, all those moments. Because like I say, if you don't want to, work for your friends, or if you, want to start something, everything has a connection. Like for me, Bird I was like the master in my kingdom here in Israel. And of course I wanted, what society would think. Everything comes together, but you won't want to talk about, and society has a very big point in what we do, 1,000%. But in the end, you want to make sure that you want to talk about it, whether for whatever reasons
that you're
proud of it.
You're proud of it.
Exactly. For the reasons that Gali is proud of. And those reasons are different between Gali, Yaniv, Yuval,
Definitely.
and anyone else. So that goes into the equation, and then you know where you need to be.
Yeah, so the proud of it is also something that I want to put a mental note on it, because you and I we're 40, we have a few years of experience already, but in so many years to learn and to grow, but we have a perspective to look back and to see what happened during our journey. And I think that what we're talking about and understanding who we are and how we navigate our journey is not an easy task, because it requires a lot of inner search and inner development and understanding and the ability to do an introspective and to see what led us to where we are, to do this inner research about what worked, what didn't work, what served us, what didn't serve us. And that requires a high level of consciousness and ability to really be with ourselves. And this is something which I won't say it's ageless. I do think that as you develop, you have more abilities, but on the same side, there are people who are more mature, but they don't have this ability. So I think that the most important thing is to develop this ability of look deeper into ourselves and be able to ask ourselves those questions and not be afraid from the answers. They are afraid, they are frightening, from time to time, but we need to see how do we feel towards them and how can we grow from those places, because being putting the head in the sand and not look to the right or to the left or what happened won't take us to where we want to go. And another thing is that sometimes only in retrospect you can understand how things brought you to where you are. Sometimes when you're in the journey, you're not necessarily able to see where everything leads you. So I want to connect this to this uncertainty that we spoke about earlier. When you go back to your childhood in Katzrin, in the north of Israel, in the Golan, Katzrin, right?
Yep.
I read in the first chapter. Did you have any idea or a vision to where you're going to be, who you want to be, that you want to be a man of this world, that you want to come out of this small village, literally village of the winery and everything, to do other stuff, to create an impact? How did it all begin?
It's a great question. So when I grew up, I wanted to be Michael Jordan. It's a little too short. Didn't have the skills. It was very sad. But no, I talk about it a lot in the book. Growing up, I didn't have the most amazing grades, was like nothing, not nothing. When I say nothing, my mother doesn't like it. Nothing, because it starts the book where I say, Shum davar b'tchilat darko, lo ra ma ze l'hatzlacha, which means nothing in the beginning of his way applied where he would go. And obviously that's not true, mommy. Because obviously the family has a lot to do with the upbringing, and we talked about it before. But no, I didn't have those aspirations. But I think it's to your point, I think it's super important to understand throughout the journey where are the points where you actually take the things that you have and build on them. So I talk a lot about, in the book also, it's like, how do you build your portfolio of life? And I really think that our life is a startup and we need to treat it that way. And like, we have a portfolio, like an investment portfolio that we build it. And as we get better, we
define what do you mean by portfolio, because I have two lines of thinking. So let's see, what are you talking about?
So what I mean about portfolio is the experiences that we gain throughout our life, and the experiences that we tend to think that everything we do, or sometimes like other people do as well. That's not true. And also, we need to build that portfolio of experiences and things from the beginning of our life. And actually those ones that we build there before, and it connects to what you said previously, is that there's a roller coaster on the front cover of the book. And the reason I put it there is actually one of the chapters is the university chapter, where I say that the university is a amusement park, and we need to go on all the rides, because in the beginning of our career, we just talked about like us being 40, and that's true. But if you look at the beginning, those are the times where we can take a lot of risks with minimum debt to them in the rest of the time. And like the university has so many things beyond the actual courses, whether it's the people, that environment, that the people are so instrumental in our life. I talk there about jobs, right? You can easily go and be, I call it a security guard, right? A security guard is a job that in Israel, a lot of people go do it in the university, and the money is good. It's like probably like 5 shekels, $1.50 more than other jobs, but the other jobs will actually build your portfolio in a much better way that will actually be worth, if you think about your lifetime value expectancy.
Think about yourself,
exactly,
and the product, and how you define the stages, and how you create your own pilots and MVPs during the different stages, and how each time, from the way I see it, from each experience. I'll go back. When you said portfolio of life, so I saw it in 2 levels. Try to imagine the one pie of portfolio of experiences, and then from each experience you gain something, and then you create the portfolio of your personality. Okay, so there are the real things that happens in the real world, like this job, this army, this flight, this networking, this startup that I've established, and there are all the mental aspects of it that we gain, that I know now to define this strength that I have, or those communication skills that I have, or those mentality that I have, or those psychological traits that I have, and you understand it from each experience. And I remember that when I went to university, I didn't know what to study. So like when I don't know many things, I choose them both. So I chose to study both law and psychology together. And back then people looked at it like, what is the connection? And nowadays, or many years now, I know to say that there's so much connection, and everything that I do today with startups is exactly this connection between the business lines and the psychological lines. But I remember that I was also a flight attendant when I was a student, and that people told me, Gali, what do you have to do with like flight attendant? What did it bring into your life? And going back to this portfolio of life that we're talking about, I know that it gave me so many unique things into my personality, my ability to be with people from various cultures, to speak different languages, to see the world, and to be able to bring myself and create myself from nothing in different situations. So those are just examples to how one job experience leverages so many things within your character. And I like to advise to people who are consulting with me in the beginning of their career, for example, or different stages, that even senior ones, about new job opportunity. I always like to ask them, how will you be when you'll finish this job? What are the new skills or mindsets or abilities that you will gain in these 2, 3, 4 years of this position? If you feel that you have a learning curve, a big one, that you can take many, many things, that's great. If you feel that it's just more of the same and just the prestige and the money. So again, if this is what you need now, that's okay. But if you have other aspirations, then you always need to think with yourself, who I will be when I'll finish this position, and what will I gain there?
Exactly. Yeah. So we're speaking the same language. So it's exactly what I describe in the book as like the portfolio. So the experiences are connected also to what you gain in terms of the traits there. I talk about the fact that I went to, after the military, I went to sell Dead Sea Cosmetics in Yorkdale Mall in Toronto. And someone can say selling Dead Sea Cosmetics, it has the stigma of what it has. But in the end, it taught me the best sales skills that I ever had. And I always say that everybody needs to have sales skills, and you can learn it wherever, but make sure that you learn it. So I think going back to like that portfolio of experiences, really, in the beginning, that's where you need to think about what each experience gives you in order to create your portfolio. I'll give another small example, but like when I was in the university, I had like an internship. So I think internships are incredibly important. And it was in the Israeli parliament. And my views are pretty much, in a certain way, but I decided to go the opposite way.
Oh, really?
And
out of your comfort zone.
Out of my comfort zone, and be a parliamentary assistant at an ultra-Orthodox, at Shas.
Wow.
An ultra-Orthodox
really?
party.
I didn't know it about you.
Yeah. So Yaakov Margi, which was the head of the party.
And we're not talking politics here. We're just explaining how we're going out of our comfort zone to see the other side point of view in order to know it better, in order to work with it.
Exactly. And it's comfort zone. You also need to, I think, understand in life that time was one of the only times, probably the only time that I could do that, because it was a finite time frame that was 1 year, 1 day a week, and that gave me the opportunity to do it, and it opened up my eyes to many other things that I could have never gotten. And what
was the major thing that you took from this period?
So I think there's several different things. I think first of all is that understanding different cultures, which is super important. Where in any position that you'll be at, understanding people is super critical. To know how to talk to, there's a great saying about like when the Israelites went out of Egypt. There's 4 different leaders. We talk about that. There's Moses, there's Aaron, there's Miriam, and whatnot. And Aaron, for instance, is a great communicator because he can talk to Pharaoh in one way and he can talk to the Israelites in another way. And once you understand that there's different people which have different mind and thoughts, then you can really talk in a different way. Another thing that I took from there is that there in the Orthodox parties there's always two assistants. One of them is a driver. So I essentially got a lot more responsibility than I would have gotten anywhere else because I basically wrote all of the laws and everything for him. So I got a lot more responsibility. And also what I took from that is that when I applied for Harvard and for Sove, Margi wrote me a recommendation letter, and it shows a lot about your character when you take those steps. So many different things that I think that if I would go to my, political view, stay in my, comfort zone, I would have never gotten them, and they would have never built me in the way that in the end I did.
Was Harvard like big dream since you were very young, or it came out later?
Yeah, no. So I think that was always in the back of my head, but not in any way that I thought that I would actually. But many of us
want to do the MBA in Ivy Leagues, etc., but only a small percentage of those really do it because it requires a very difficult process in order to be accepted, and then also it's very, very costly, and many life changes around it. As amazing as it is, at the end you need to make a choice, and we'll talk about choices, that you really want to take it, and this is the main thing. So why did you feel that this is what you want to do?
It's a great question. So I'll take a step back also about talking before, which I think is very important, about like how do we look at ourselves and always look at ourselves and what are our advantages and what we can use versus others. So for instance, we went back to something that could be a disadvantage, right? Growing up in a town of 7,000 people in the periphery of Israel, you can look at it as a disadvantage, right? On the flip side, I have never paid one shekel or $1 for any of my studies in my life. And I studied undergrad in Hebrew U, another program at McGill, and did my master's at Harvard, and then Singularity University. Never paid one shekel. For Hebrew U, when I came for my undergrad, there was a scholarship called Mifal HaPais, which is, I don't know even how you translate it. And it was for people that were in combat in the military and from the periphery. And I got it. And another thing that I think is very important that people often don't do is look for experiences that are in the beginning. And it's also about it's also about like startups, right? You want to find them when they only started now, because once you come into it later, it'll be much harder for you to actually get in. So for instance, let's take this scholarship. When I applied, I found it somehow. It was the first year. 1,000 people applied, 1,000 people got it. Now there's like tens of thousands of people that apply,
the
right?
Threshold is much higher.
The threshold is much harder.
Difficult.
Similar to what I say about Bird. I would have never, the fact that I came into Bird in a unique way actually gave me the opportunity to start being the GM. No one really interviewed me.
But I think that what you're describing now is a natural evolvement of actually like everything you can say in economic markets, in startups, in positions within corporations or startups, because before there is a lot of competition, you can be up there, people can see you. But once there are many like you in this area, and it can be about product, services, or whatever, then the competition is much higher. And I think that the most important thing, as you said, is to do both things. First is all the time to try to identify what is your relative advantages, just like in economics. What is Yaniv's superpowers and Gali's superpowers, and what is my value proposition that no one else have? And even if someone is doing something which is similar to me, or even someone else is the GM of another company that is similar to Bird, you still have a uniqueness. So what is your uniqueness? So this is one thing. And then to be open to opportunities all the time, because a uniqueness is not enough if you're not doing anything, which is with this uniqueness, right? You need to constantly see the opportunities and try to create this match between the value proposition and the uniqueness that you have, and the surrounding and the opportunities, and then the magic happens when you know how to make this match together.
Couldn't agree more. And if we go back to Harvard from that perspective and what you talked about, it's very interesting, because I started to build my portfolio. I then got accepted into a unique scholarship at McGill with 12 young leaders from around the world. By the way, I never, I applied the first time, I got rejected. Many things I got rejected the first time. I often think that it's better sometimes to be rejected the first time, because you come much more, mature the second time. You can look at it also as startups. Like when someone fails, they come into the second time, they think about things differently. Their portfolio is already bigger. So I came in there, and basically to that scholarship, I also built already the people around you. Again, I can't emphasize it more. The communities that are around you, the people that are around you are so important. So when I got in there to the Sauvé Scholars, we were 12 people from around the world. One of them was Megan, who studied at Harvard before, and Janet.
This is the beginning of networking.
Exactly.
Also, and then the network effect, and you never know where it will take you. That's why you have to be so open and to always be curious about who are the people that you're going to meet, and not from an interest state of mind. Like, it's okay, like, to have an interest, and how can I help you, and how can you help me? It's okay, because at the end, this is life, and it's really much okay if everyone are benefiting from it.
I always talk about it. It always needs to be a win-win-win. If it's a win-win-win, we're doing something well, and that's what we always need to aspire to. So basically, I was there, and then I got to Canada, and then I really understood only then the importance of global perspective. Being there, looking back at Israel, I think one of the most important things for us to do in general, first of all, is to go live somewhere abroad, because that puts us and takes us to the look in a different way about our life. I think one of the most valuable things to me at Harvard was one of my mentors, Ron Heifetz, Professor Ron Heifetz, and he has a great quote saying, you always need to go from the dance floor into the balcony. And when you go from the dance floor into the balcony, you see things about the dance floor and where you're at that you didn't see before. And then I understood that I want to continue the global perspective. I was already there. Tried to, did all the, like you said, it's a very tedious process. Did it, by the way, got the worst GRE score in the history of anyone that got into Harvard. I think one of the beauties about
But you've been to Harvard, so it doesn't matter anymore.
I know.
But at that point of time, it mattered.
At that time it mattered. I didn't know if I would get accepted, but luckily there they look at the holistic view and the portfolio that I already built through the recommendations and everything. And the cost is I have a great story about that, where I basically, it's like over $100,000. I didn't have that kind of money, and I was again I was talking to people. Megan connected me to someone. I just heard there was a scholarship called Fishman Scholarship, amazing scholarship from like the Minneapolis Jewish community, something that no one really could find. Dozens of people apply each year. That's not a lot. One person gets it for Ivy League studies, Israeli, for economics, political science, or law.
So how did you become this one?
So that's a great question. So I basically applied, and those were the days, it was 2009, those were the days that there was WebEx. It wasn't even, we weren't even talking about Zoom. That shows how old we are. And basically they offered me to, do it on WebEx. And I said, no way. I am getting on a flight. I'm paying myself a flight to Montreal to Minnesota.
Because why? What was there? What was this inner fire?
So that's what I'm saying. So I'm saying, take out the inner fire for a second. I would actually flip it. I would say, okay, what is there's 24 people that are now fighting for one spot. You always need to find what is your advantage. What is my advantage? I want to be there face to face. Face to face is always better than doing something on the video. So I took a flight, $500, stayed at Motel 6 in Minnesota, minus 20 degrees in the winter, came to the interview, one-on-one, and I got it. And again, I don't know if that was the reason, but I know one thing, that it didn't take down my chances. And then if you look actually at so I invested probably $900, $1,000 to go there out of my own money, and then I got $100,000.
But there are two things there that you didn't say, but I think they are there. Let me suggest and tell me if you agree. First of all, you say I invested this $900 and $1,000 in getting there. No, you invested this $1,000 in yourself, because, and this is something which is very, very strongly comes out from you. You really believe in yourself, and I think that this inner strong belief in ourselves and where we can go and what we can do, this is a very, very crucial driving force to where we're heading. And that made you do this extra mile. And this is something that we often see with entrepreneurs, because the beginning is always hard. It's always very hard also later on. But if you're not coming, let's say, from a very, very wealthy family, and you need to start it all from the beginning with your own two hands in mind, and to bring the people from FFF and to the money, and to bring other people on board that will believe in you. This is the currency that you're using, okay? The currency of the belief in yourself. And you did this extra mile and you invested in yourself. And then when you do this retrospective, you can say, yeah, it paid off. But even if it wouldn't paid off, I'm sure that where it would lead you was to another great place, that you would sit here and have another great story, because you had this, growth opportunity within this life.
Or can I agree, but let me also look at the flip side. The flip side maybe is that I didn't believe in myself that much, and I knew that I had to take the extra mile in order to win, as opposed to the other 24 that maybe believed in themselves and thought that they had it in their shoe and in their bag to win the scholarship. And I felt that I had to take that extra mile. in order to have the chance to put me in a position to win.
So I hear you. And I really know closely this voice within your head that saying just what you said. And I think that, at least to my interpretation, that this is the voice that tries, to keep you safe and to keep you grounded and to live this, small essence of humbleness and not to be too full of ourselves. I felt like I have to do this extra mile, otherwise I wouldn't have this chance. But I think that this is the voice that, keeps us on track, that we do believe in ourselves and we do want to take this leap and we do even invest money in it and something good will happen. I do agree that not necessarily we understand what is the good thing that came out of it in the same moment. Sometimes it can, arrive years later. But that brings us back to the beginning of our conversation to be very, very accurate and very attuned to ourselves and who we are in this process and what do we feel and how do we see things. And then it doesn't matter which path you're going to choose or life is going to navigate you. You are learning all the time and you are developing and you are gaining more assets into your portfolio, right? That later on will fuel you in the next stages.
Agreed. And always I think it's an important, I think if I go back to that point and telling people like whatever it was, that $1,000, even if I wouldn't have made it, right? It would have been an adventure, right? I've never been to Minnesota before.
Right.
It's a story. It's a great story. And life is about stories. And sometimes we're in the midst of a story and it seems to us like, wow, this is like, it's not going the way I want. But in the end, those are actually the times and the stories that we probably talk about most after. So I always encourage people to, say yes and not say no, because when you say yes, like what's the worst thing that can actually happen?
So I want to be for a second the devil's advocate to what we're saying here, because I totally agree with your, mindset and we think the same in this area. But de facto, nowadays, you're running a big company. You have stress, you have pressure. You need to show ROI. You need to bring, sales. You need to bring more clients. You need to be more effective. You need to do many, many things that the business world requires you to. And you have somehow to keep yourself not too stressed during this journey. And sometimes I know that the cynical voices or the cynical people may say, okay, so you're bullshit about mindsets, etc., etc. Although you and I don't think it's a bullshit. This is a way of living. Like that when you want to have a diet, you don't want to have a diet. You want to maintain a healthy life cycle. So how do you keep yourself on your business, routine day to day, not to get too stressed from things and to succeed to bring all this mindset and integrate it into something that's very, very hectic day to day?
I think that's a great question. And I think that also comes from life. So if you look at life in general, that's why I really think that gaining that experience, even if we go back to selling at Dead Sea Cosmetics in the malls, doing it many times puts you in a different position. So I'll go back to, we launched Bird in 14th of August, 2018, 4 years now. And people told me it won't work, it won't this, it won't that. I always, if someone tells you that everything's going to work, don't do it. So I went for it and I had a true belief that it will work. But even though between the night of the 13th and the 14th of August, I couldn't sleep. And it doesn't matter how convicted you are in what you're doing, it has no correlation. I didn't know until they're out and I see people riding them, and then Bird became the most successful. It in Tel Aviv, the most successful city in the world. Wall Street Journal, everybody did like articles about it, why it's the city of the future and the right thing. But I couldn't sleep, and it doesn't matter. And then on the 14th, I did an interview, 8 minutes in the biggest channel 2 in Israel, and I was like talking like I was stuttering. I couldn't do it. fast forward, right? Because like I didn't have approval from the city council, and at the end of that 8 minutes, the city of Tel Aviv had a response. Bird needs to take out all the e-scooters from their thing, and I was like, okay, this is like super stressful. And then if you look at the journey of like, after like now like speaking to media, right? Much easier. Going into those stressful moments, okay, that stressful moment will pass. And I really believe that and going back to what we discussed also before, it's like, it's times in a cycle. So once you do it, it's not something that you're born with. It's practice makes perfect. And it's super important to remember that. And I think the more we do in our life, the more we understand those things. So I think that's why I also believe in like, don't stay in the same position for a while. 4 or 5 years is a good time frame to do. I think it depends on what positions, and when you're the general manager or that, I think that's the right time. I think before that, it's not you can do for a lower period of time. But what I'm saying in that is like, and that goes back to the same conversation that we had before about the dance floor to the balcony. Once we're in a reality, we think that's the only reality. And we think that every move we take or every move we do will affect the world, and we can't move from that reality, and we look in that prism, right? But when you start to move between realities, then you become much more comfortable because you understand that this is only one reality, and there's multiple realities, and it's going to be okay. And you're going to move to the next reality, and you're going to have the same challenges that you experienced before in a different form. And you're gaining those toolboxes and that portfolio that makes you act in a much better way as you move forward in life.
I really like it, and I want to reflect a few things that you've just mentioned. Everything about this mindset and different mindsets is actually a muscle. And like when we go to the gym, it's a muscle that we need to strengthen, and we are strengthening it by using it more and more and more and more. And then our body has this memory of what happens there, and new things can become more automated. We're not negotiating with ourselves about various things that happens. Also, it can be on bad behavior. So we need, of course, to fine tune it. I think that one of the most important things that you're describing in managing this stress as GM, as CEO in high level positions, and one of the ways to manage stress is actually to have this perspective. Now, busy managers, busy CEOs, they have so many balls in the air all the time that they cannot just put all the focus only on one thing, because then all the others are falling, and they have like to juggle all the time, but to put the right intention on the big ones when they are important. Okay, they have to clear the schedule. Okay, now we're addressing just this because this is a major thing. There is a global crisis now. We have to address it. We need this talent. We want to bring it in. We need to focus on this. But on the day-to-day, we have to juggle between so many things. And I think that one of the, like you said beautifully, one of the best practices in the toolbox is our ability to zoom out from the situation, exactly like in the phone and in the camera. Our ability to go out a little bit, to have a wider and bigger perspective about what's going on, and then to go back and have this zoom in. So first of all, we see that the problem is not as big as we thought it is. And then we see that there are also other things that requires our attention, and we cannot neglect them. One of the things that I see as most valuable for the founders that I coach and work with is that actually I bring a lot of perspective from all of them, because I work with founders in very early stage, prior to IPOs, after IPOs, and they have a very, very wide perspective on their mental notes and mental habits and what happens there. And I know that this is one of the things that gives them a lot of comfort, because like we say, as we become parents, I can say from experience, you think that when you have young children, so it's the most challenging and difficult, things that you're addressing. And then when they grow up, you see it gets, it's different, it gets bigger, etc. So the same with startups. At the beginning, we feel that we have to raise this, seed or pre-seed or seed rounds. Otherwise, we cannot exist. But later on, when you already have $100 or $150 million in the bank, you know that you have to work so hard in order to continue to grow. And that brings a different set of stress factors and indicators that you need to deal with. And having this perspective that it's always hard and it's up to us how to address it, I think it's something very, very, very important. And it goes back to what you said in the beginning about surrounding ourselves with people who cares, both in the family, both in the community, both at work, because we cannot do it alone and we cannot hold all those things by ourselves. And we really need others to help us relax for a second, think with us, brainstorm with us, and take also part of the efforts that we feel to share it together.
So I'll say, first of all, completely agree, and I'll say two things on that. And the last point is very, very important, because I think if you haven't read Hastings' book, the founder of Netflix, I think it's highly recommended, and he talks there about he wants to take himself out of business, not the company, but rather Reed. Mm-hmm. So the more he can outsource, mm-hmm. the more he has time for other things. And I think that's crucial. And the only way to actually do that is bring the right people mm-hmm. on board, and bring mm-hmm. people that, don't be afraid to bring people that are strong people, that you can grow together with, because if you do that, that's where you're going to feel, better. I always like to groom people, and wherever I've been, the person that I brought on continued to run, the company afterwards. And I really believe in that. And I think that's super important in order to make sure that you have the right things that you can focus on. And there's a big there's a big argument between being a generalist and being an expert, right? Mm-hmm. I definitely believe that I'm on the generalist part. And if you're a generalist, it's super important to understand that you don't know everything. Mm-hmm. And you're not going to be an expert in a lot of things. That's why it's so important to bring on those experts in order to, and trust them, because it's not only important to bring them on. You're
saying two things, exactly. To bring the right people, the right team, right. But to learn how to let go and to trust. And this is it sounds simple, but it's not. And for people who are control freak, for people who are very visionary and they want things that happens in their way, it's not an easy position to learn how to let go and really let others lead in those directions. And by understanding that not everything will happen the way you want, but first of all, you will help others to grow, and you will be more free and available to nurture new initiatives in your life that are also important for you. This is part of what we need to understand as founders, as individuals. We cannot navigate everything 100%, and we need to learn how to let go in several places in order to groom other people, other initiatives, and to learn how to balance it all.
And by the way, that's why I love the role of CEO, general manager, because in the end, I'm a generalist, and I need to know everything, but I need to know when to go to the macro and when I need to go into the micro, mm-hmm. and when I need to go out of the micro into the macro. And that's mm-hmm. something that you need to ask yourself, mm-hmm. do you like it? Because a lot of people don't. A lot of mm-hmm. people like to be in their own, place, domain, yeah. excel in it, mm-hmm. build their own kingdom, and that's great. I go for the second aspect, and it goes back to also being a good communicator, understanding people, giving that responsibility. But I really love the fact that one day, if you think about it, Bird is probably the company with the most diverse roles that you can have, because we're an asset heavy company. So we actually have operations, and we have obviously the P&L, the app, the customers, the government relations, the comms, everything. Mm-hmm. And you need to know when you need to go mm-hmm. from point A to point B. And if you spend too much time in point B, on the transition or point B, and not going back mm-hmm. Strong enough to mm-hmm. point A, you also won't let your team have the empowering them in the way they need to, but also you are not going to be that person that needs to lead the organization.
It's great. I totally agree. And it brings us back again to the same point that we've discussed in the beginning, that there's no right or wrong in being journalists and the CEO prototype, or being the domain expert, example, Grecia, the CDO or the chief product or the chief marketing or chief sales, etc. It's a question of who you are. What are your strengths? What are your desires? Where is your passion? What is your portfolio of experiences, and where you can make the most, make the impact? And what do you choose? And how do you want your day-to-day to look like? And sometimes I see people that are not in the right positions because there are many reasons, but some of them is, the society around them, the surrounding, the voices that they think that they need to address, to make other people happy. It can be our mother or father. It can be the money that we need to bring home. This is, and money has a lot of respect to everyone. It's really an important thing in our life, but to see someone who's really unhappy, or she or he unhappy in what they do only because of the salary. This is something that we often see, and we really need to pay attention to it, because especially we talk about it a lot in the high tech, right? You get into this loop and into this race that, okay, so now I earn a lot of money, so I bought this big house and I have this kind of lifestyle, and now if I live something, so I can't afford myself this lifestyle, this lifestyle. And recently I see so many people around me, founders, corporate people, self-employed, whatever, it doesn't matter, that they just feel like they want to leave everything, leave this way of living that we are currently in and change. And they go to 1 year abroad, and we have many common friends, I'm sure that we're both familiar with. And again, there's no right or wrong. We just need to understand the price of our choices, the cost of our choices, and to be fully committed that this is what we want to have for this half a year, 2 years, and to choose it.
But I also think there's something beyond that. I also think that you need to do what you love, because if you do what you love, you'll do it well. If you'll do it well, the money will follow. And I think that's what is so hard for people to understand in the beginning of the career, which I think that's why it's so important to start. And I want to, tell people, start it in the beginning. Don't go to study something that you didn't want, because go do what you love, because if you do it and you love it, you're going to do it well. And I remember an instance of after undergrad, and I was sitting with 2 friends. One studied industrial engineering from the Technion, and both of us studied political science, both from the IDC and Hebrew U. And he said, I'm going to make much more money than you. And we said, we're going to do what we're loving, it'll be okay. Fast forward, we make more, not less money, and we took the path that we wanted. And I think that's super important, because you build that path. And I think that it's if you don't understand that, I think one of the things that I'm super grateful for, and we talk, and it's a closing of the circle in a way, but you asked me in the beginning, did I think that I would do this and that? No, because the things that I wanted to do in life, I wanted to be the ambassador. There are things that don't have one line. There are things that you by definition you need to go in a pendulum, right? And that gave me a great opportunity to build things and build the portfolio in a way that brought me to where I am. And I can say that it brought me to a good place and where I am. And otherwise, it would have maybe taken me in one direction, which is also good. But you need to understand what you want and what you love.
I do want to say something about it. I do agree that we need to love what we do. But maybe it's easier for us to say it now, from where we're talking in this position, or currently after, exploring 40 years of life already. But do what you love. And I can talk about people that I know at the age of 20, or my students, or also my friends who are 40, 45 years old. Is not an easy, it's tricky, and it's not an easy thing to find. Why? Because there are so many things that try to keep us from finding and being tuned into this place. And I want to say a few things about it. First of all, it requires...
I just want to say something before. I never said that it's easy.
Okay. No. I agree. I'm expanding it. Okay. So first of all, we need to explore it. There are many people who don't know what they love. And that's okay. I didn't know what I love like for so many years until I did. Okay. But we need to be willing to explore it. And by exploring it, it means that we'll make mistakes, we'll choose bad path, or not bad path, but not the right or the accurate path for us. And we'll do some things that we'll learn from. But we have to be curious in order to explore it and to see whatever comes. This is the one thing. Second thing, I think is very important also to be realistic. At the end, I like Erez Vigodman, who used to be my CEO and always said, head in the sky, feet on the ground. So yeah, you can dream, you can imagine, you can create whatever you want, but at the end, you need to bring money home because you have children, or if you don't have children, you have to provide yourself. You have responsibility, and this brings me to the third point. You have responsibility on what? On your life. So it is important to find what we love, but we need also to do it in a practical way, okay? To be realistic, to understand that our choices has a trade-off. And if we want to be an actor, for example, or a singer or a YouTuber or whatever, doesn't matter. Everything is valid. We need to understand what it means to be this persona and what will be the challenges there and how we are overcoming those challenges, or if we want to be in a position now that maybe doesn't make money, but we have other aspirations. So how we're going to figure it out? We also have to be realistic. Why? Because life is complex today and we have to address so many things. So only aspirations and only dreams, I do think that I want to bring also a practical voice into this conversation because it's very, very crucial in these days. And I think that the way to see it, if I'll sum up this part of this conversation, is not just to do what you love, is also to love the journey. And once you love the journey, you learn what to take from it. You learn how to appreciate. You learn to see how you are growing and developing within it. And then there's nothing not to like. Like you said, that when you went to get this
scholarship.
Thank you. The scholarship. So even if you wouldn't be accepted, you knew that you did everything within your power to do, and you would love your choice, even if it wouldn't bring you to the desired outcome, but you loved your choice and you wouldn't be with regrets to the way you chose to behave. So we need to try and fine-tune what we love, but we need also to understand what will be the practical sides of it. And practical means according to the definition to how we want to live life. There's no one truth, and to try to love the journey.
Agreed. And I think that's why it's so important to start the journey in the beginning. Because then
the journey starts. The question is if we are, if
you're in it,
exactly.
if you go on the roller coaster,
exactly.
or if you choose to go on the roller coaster, or you choose not to go on the roller coaster, and you can do them both.
If you choose to be on the court or just to, exactly,
100%.
and each position in life can be from those two perspectives. It just depends how do you see it. If you're taking an active play, or you're being passive and not just nurtured by others, or you choose to play the game in yourself.
Yeah, and I also remember that it's a game and you're playing against others.
Right.
So you need to remember that. And if you take an active role, while most people in general, in essence, are passive, if you take an active role, you are already one step ahead.
That's great. That's great. Not too active. Also, I'll put it in another way. Also, being active is a spectrum. You can be in this side of the spectrum or this side of the spectrum. It doesn't mean that you always have to be active and all the time and in everything, because it also has its trade-off and prices and energy. So you also need to focus. But I totally agree. Being active is few steps ahead than, being passive and wait for things to happen to you. Wow, Yaniv, I feel like we have so many things to brainstorm and to discuss, because I really think we see many, many things in life in a similar way. So where is Yaniv heading, and where do you see yourself in, the next few years? What are you wishing to yourself?
It's a great question. I think I actually end the book with.
What did you write there?
With a paragraph that. I know it's amazing because you just asked that. And this is exactly the end.
So read it to us.
I'll read it. I'll translate it already.
Translate it.
So what next? I don't have an answer to that question. If you would ask me that 5 years ago, if I'll be a general manager of a scooter company, most probably that I would laugh in your face. And that's what I would also say if you would ask me 25 years ago if I would go to Harvard. What I do know is that everything I do, I will ask myself before the right questions. And that's the reason I wrote this book. I know a few things about my next roles. They will be involved with making Israeli society and the world a better place. They will be meaningful, very meaningful, and will challenge me with new experiences. They will make me wake up every morning with happiness and excitement to what the day will bring. And also then I will continue to aspire to the next big thing.
Wow. So I wish you all of that and beyond. And, I didn't read yet the last paragraph, but here it was harama le'anchata, like we like to say. Yaniv, it was really, really inspiring and fun talking to you today. People who want to be in touch with you or Bird or you personally, where can they find you?
Anywhere, LinkedIn, Instagram, write me emails, phone call, whatever you want.
Wonderful. Thank you again for coming and sharing all this wisdom and insight.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. To our lovely listeners, we're going to hit pause until the next episode. That's also something I say to the entrepreneurs in my clinic in between sessions. It's not a dot, it's a pause. If you enjoyed listening, I would really appreciate it if you share this podcast with people who you think would derive value from it. Thanks to the amazing studios at Google Campus that allow me to record all this content here. Feel free to visit my website at galiblochliran.com and leave there your details if you wish to be updated and learn more about the mental aspects of the entrepreneurial journey. Also, be sure to follow my podcast, The Human Founder, in any of your podcast apps and rate it so it will rise to the top. Let's hit pause. Till next time. Bye, Yaniv. Thanks.
Bye. Thank you.